Are you thinking of leaving corporate, but too afraid to make the move? Have you already escaped corporate, but are finding it hard to run your dream business? Are you wasting valuable time by attempting to figure challenges out on your own? We have created a podcast for corporate escapees running their own business. This is the Corporate Escapees Podcast by Build, Live, Give. We bring you first-hand experiences of guests going through many of the struggles you face each and every day as a corporate escapee. We get real with no corporate BS. And now, over to your host, Paul Higgins.
Welcome to Corporate Escapees Experts Podcast, brought to you by Build, Live, Give. On this podcast, we get some of the world's best experts to help solve some of the key challenges that our community face. And we've got about 150 trusted experts in BLG Boost, where you can search a topic and find an expert around the world. You can find more about BLG Boost at blgboost.com. But today we have an absolute guru in PR. So her name's Jules Brooke, and Jules spent the last 15 years teaching small business owners and entrepreneurs how to grow their sales to get the phone ringing by getting it featured for free in the media. Does that sound enticing? It certainly did for me. She's owned and operated a number of small businesses herself and ran a PR agency specializing in small business clients, startups, and entrepreneurs for well over a decade now. She's worked in most disciplines in marketing, both in Australia and New Zealand, and she loves to share her knowledge and experience with her customers. So handle my own PR. You're going to get to know lots about this through the podcast. But why don't we just start, Jules, with a little bit of a background as to how you got into PR?
Thanks, Paul. It's great to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. I got into PR kind of by accident. I actually picked up a client before I actually had ever done any PR. And that was, I don't know if anyone remembers Mark Mitchell, who is Con the Fruiterer, a comedian in Australia. He got the wrong idea about what I did and asked me to promote his new DVD that had come out. And basically, I kind of learned off the cuff. And from that, ended up running an agency. So I did one job, got some great results. Then they gave me some more DVDs, and then I employed people to work on it. And the next thing you know, we had an agency. And then when the GFC hit in 2008, I realized that a lot of our small business customers couldn't really afford to be paying an agency $3,000 a month. But I knew that they had great stories and that the media is always looking for great stories. And so I decided I would teach people how to do it themselves. And that's really how I set up Handle Your Own PR.
Fantastic. And what do you think made that big break for you going back with Mark Mitchell? What did you do that turned it into such a success?
Well, I think really what had happened was I had a very young baby and I was desperately looking for more clients. I was working in graphic design, had a graphic design agency. And Mark kind of got the wrong impression because he met me through someone who's in PR. And just rang me and said, you're going to do, I've told them that you're the best person to do it. And I accepted the job because I needed the money. But I rang around all my friends in PR to see if they would do it. And they said, no, give it a go yourself. You'll be fine. And I actually found that it was really easy and that it's just a process and that the media were very open to my suggestions in terms of story ideas and interviews. And from that, I guess I just started doing more and more of the same and realized that there is just a simple process. And once you know how to do it, it's a bit like riding a bike. You'll always be able to do it. So that's really what set me on the road of teaching rather than actually doing it for people. Having said that, I have had an agency on the side for a very long time, and I do occasionally do it for my clients, but I'm a big fan of people doing it themselves and building the relationship with journalists directly themselves.
Great. And I know that a lot of our community talk about PR, but they always think it's just for the big guys. You've got to, like you said, have big budgets, spend $3,000 a month or more, or, no one's going to be interested in my story. But why don't you just firstly describe what PR actually is for a small business and, dispel some of those myths?
I would absolutely love to, because the first thing that you mentioned, which is it's really expensive, was the reason why I set up doing it, teaching people how to do it themselves. It's actually not very hard to do. It's a very simple process, and journalists are desperate for stories all the time. But if I was to go through some of the common kind of issues that people raise with me, other than being expensive, one of them is that people often say that they don't have enough stories, or they don't think that they can come up with enough stories, or even one story that the media is going to be interested in. And really, again, that's just a technique. It's understanding how you can it really, as an expert, you want to take your expertise and the information that you would be giving your customers and put it out there really as information that people can read about in a magazine or newspaper, or that you could talk about in an interview. So there are always ways to come up with angles, and I mean, we haven't got time to go through them all, but one of the main suggestions that I give people is start thinking about the tips and advice that you offer people if you're talking to them verbally, and start putting it into written form. And the same thing, if you've written a book, then you can take each of the chapters of the book, take the chapter heading as the heading for your media release, and then expand on it below. And a media release is really only 500 words. So it's not a big, long epistle. You're trying to get the journalist interested to find out more if they want to. So it's not a terribly complex or long document that you have to write. Another thing that people often say to me is that they don't know whether PR will actually work for them. And having now worked with so many different types of business owners, I know that it works for everyone. And the other thing, of course, about PR is that it's totally free, because editorial is very different to advertorial or advertising in a magazine or a newspaper. And so if you can go to the editorial department with a good story, then no money exchanges hands. So it's actually a free way of marketing, which is very, very powerful for people. And sorry, I've just realized I didn't answer your initial question. What is PR? PR is about getting your story in magazines, newspapers, on radio, TV, in blogs and podcasts for free.
Great. And have you seen much of a switch between, traditional media, so magazines, print, etc., and now more podcasts and other mediums, or is it still fairly similar to when you launched in 2008?
Well, the media landscape has certainly changed. So the fact that people can now blog, and some of them have massive followers, has really made them just another media outlet. So even though in theory it's changed and we've gone a long way down the digital path, I would still say, and I often have young people that will say to me, why would I bother with traditional media when I can go out on social media and go out to digital media? I would have to say that the integrity that it gives your business and the profile that it gives you if you appear in a mainstream magazine or newspaper or on radio or TV, so the old traditional media, what it gives you is a lot more credibility for some reason. The other thing is that with social media, if you put out a post with your own information in it, you might get however many followers. But if you put out a post that has been printed in a magazine or a newspaper and say, oh, we're thrilled that the Sydney Morning Herald or that the Fin Review did a story for us today, and put that out on social media, it'll go about 10 times further. So the algorithms for SEO and for social media absolutely love anything that comes from a traditional media outlet.
Great. And I know that I'm really looking forward to being a part of your workshop, but why don't you just sort of talk a little bit or let listeners know a little bit about how you do your workshops and how you actually take someone from being a complete novice into getting stories in a 2-day period.
Great. Well, so I've got two different kind of offerings. One is that I have a PR platform at handleyourownpr.com.au, and on it I have thousands of media contacts. And I've also got a media release template, and it kind of steps people through the process. But what I also do is I run these PR accelerators, which you are coming to next week, and I'm very excited to have you there. The way that they work is that you pay $500 a month, and you get to over 12 months, and you get to come to 4 2-day events. Each event is designed for. So what happens is you come along. I teach you everything that I know about PR, and that's sort of the first morning, and then I bring in some pretty high-profile, very experienced journalists, and they sit with you during the event for all of Tuesday afternoon. Then we go out for dinner and drinks with them, and then they come back on Tuesday morning, and you get to sit with them for up to 8 hours to brainstorm the angles that will work for you, and then you write the media release and we edit them for you and give you feedback so that they are absolutely ready to go. And then as part of the program, you get access to the PR platform included. And so on the second day, we help you create a media contact list that is relevant to each of your releases. And we get you to load them up onto the PR platform so that at the end of 2 days, you've got 3 full campaigns ready to go. And my idea is that you send out 1 campaign a month so that you have ongoing PR for the next 3 months. And then when you get to the end of the 3 months and you go, oh my goodness, I don't know what other angles I can do, or I've run out of puff, or I need more motivation, you come back and do another 2 days. We work on the next 3 months worth of PR, and we get you all motivated and excited again. And so that goes on every quarter, so that by the end of the 12 months, you should have at least 24 articles that have been published in the media. I have to say, at the last 5 events that we've had, people have been published either at the event or within 24 hours. And then it's ongoing. And then obviously, because you're doing it yourself, you know the process. And before you know it, you're just directly contacting the journalists, and they're coming back to you, asking for your comments because they know you're an expert in a particular field.
With the journalists, how do you pick which journalists? Like, so for example, if someone's writing on a very special niche or after something that's very specific, how do they get value out of a journalist that is, maybe more generic, as an example?
Most journalists can write on lots and lots of different topics, and they certainly know what is newsworthy and not newsworthy. So I do tend to go for journalists that are very experienced. Most of them are now freelancers because they have been, because of what's happening in the media landscape. So for instance, for the one that we've got next Monday, I have Wendy Squires coming, who does a regular column in the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, but she also writes for Woman's Weekly. She writes for Mamma Mia. She's written for The Bulletin. She writes for BRW occasionally. I've got a TV presenter who is from the Today Show, who knows what they're looking for TV. So you get to talk with her about what would be your sound bites, what are the kind of messages, how to get your message into a nice pithy little statement to make sure that you get it across well. And she also talks about the sorts of things that you can expect if you are going to go on TV. And she's available, obviously, for that full day and a half as well. And then I have another journalist who has written for most of the mainstream newspapers. She's the ex-editor of Fernwood magazine, which is the women's health space, but she's actually a business writer and has written for the arts as well, and all different things. So, and then I'm there, and I'm kind of, have worked with lots and lots of different types of businesses as well. So I don't think you specifically need to have a journalist that is that focuses on your topic. All the journalists will be able to help you come up with newsworthy angles for your particular situation.
Great. And sorry, you go.
No, I was just going to say, and it depending on what you want the PR to achieve as well, because some people are looking for profile raising, some people are looking for sales, some people want their business to be in the media, other ones would like their face to be the one that people are starting to see. So there's lots of different ways we can spin that story as well.
And you talk about newsworthy stories. What do you think makes a really good newsworthy story?
Well, okay, let me turn it around and say what doesn't make a newsworthy story, and which is the big temptation for, I would say, 99% of business owners out there, is to talk about their own business. So what you don't want to do is make a story sound like an ad. And if you're writing for the media and you want to get editorial, then it can't be about a sale that you're having. It can't be about, come and join my business because it's, we're experts in our area or we do the best service. None of that is of interest to the media. But what they do want to know is what you can offer, information that you can offer that will help other people. So if you think about it, if you're reading a newspaper, you don't want to read a newspaper that says such and such a business has launched last week, or so-and-so is having a sale. You're looking for information that will help you. So as a business writer, or if you're trying to create some profile in the media, what you want to do is start taking your IP and taking the information that you know and the expertise that you have, and start to write articles that will help other people in that space. Because what that does is positions you as an expert. Sometimes people will say to me, oh, but I don't really want to let go of all my IP. People will copy. The reality is that they don't. But what happens is that they go, whoa, this person really knows their stuff. I should get in contact with them because they're going to be able to help me in this particular area. The other thing that you've also got to do in a media release is work out who you're talking to and talk to them directly. So, for instance, if I'm writing a media release, so Handle Your Own PR is targeting small business owners, but there are lots and lots of different types of small business owners. So if I was going to business mums, I might be talking about how handling your own PR can be done at night, and it can be done in a way that makes it really easy to manage along with your family life. If I was talking to somebody who was in a corporate position and they wanted to raise their profile in order to maybe be considered for promotion, then I would be saying to them, well, then you want to put out articles that are around the information that you can offer people. So if you work in, say you work in a bank and you specialize in banking software, then you might start putting out articles that are around what to look for in a particular type of banking software, or how to tell whether software is robust enough for your business, et cetera, et cetera. So you need to take your expertise and get that information out there and not talk about your business or yourself as being the solution.
And you sort of talked about the traditional, it's all about blogs and podcasts as an example versus traditional media. That's one myth.
Yep.
What are some other key myths that the people have when it comes to PR?
All right. One of the most common myths that I hear is that they think that a lot of people will say to me, I just don't know what to say to a journalist. I just don't think that the journalist is going to be interested. And they feel that by putting feelers out and sending something to a journalist, it's like cold calling. It's like doing sales, and you're knocking on the door going, I don't think you'll want this, but let me persuade you. That is completely wrong when it comes to the media. Journalists rely on people sending them stories in order to, be able to fill a newspaper or be able to fill a radio station day in, day out. So they need those stories. In fact, I was on the panel for the NAB Small Business Summit a couple of years ago, and I was on there with a whole lot of editors of sort of big name newspapers. It was the editor of the enterprise section in the Australian. There was someone there from Startup Smart, or Smart Company, sorry, and a couple of other ones. And we had someone in the audience that yelled out and said to the people, really, as a business owner, are you very interested in hearing from me, or should it really come from a professional? And without any, totally unanimously, they all said, we want to speak to the business owner. So whether the PR company does the introduction or whether it comes directly from the business owner, it's business owners that we want to talk to. So I always say to people, why pay someone really to facilitate an introduction when actually, the journalist wants to talk to you anyway?
Mm-hmm.
Another of the myths that I hear a lot from people is that they think that to be seen as an expert on TV, they need to have loads of degrees and qualifications. And if they don't have them, that the media is not going to be interested. And I have to say that everyone can be an expert in the media. You don't need degrees and qualifications. You just need experience, and you need to have enough information that you can share it with other people. So, and a classic example is I've got a brilliant clip from a BBC breakfast show, and the guy's title across the bottom is emoticon translator. And I think everyone can be an emoticon translator. I've even seen cheese grating expert as one of the subtitles on a documentary show that I was watching. So really anyone can be an expert in the media. You just need to be prepared to comment on something, and you need to be able to offer insights into a particular situation or problem. And another of the common myths that I hear is that in order to get a story in the newspaper, you need to buy an ad. And I know that gets perpetuated a lot by the smaller media, but actually there's a thing called journalistic integrity, which basically says that they can't be influenced by any commercial gain in order to write a story. So you can call a journalist out on that basically, but there is absolutely no real connection between buying an ad and getting a story. And if they are related, then you're getting advertorial, which is paid for editorial, as opposed to free editorial, which is what I teach people how to get.
Great. And as far as topics, so, are there particular topics at particular times that are hotter than others? Obviously there's, and different by country as well. Is there a cultural difference?
Look, there is and there isn't. Around the world, there are key times of year that if you think in retail space, there's always Mother's Day, Father's Day, there's end of financial year, whenever that might be in your country. There is normally, and then there's Christmas, and there may be other sort of key dates of the year. So one of the things, if you've got a product that's going out to consumers or a service that's going out to consumers, is to try and tie your story into one of those key times of year. But also you can tie it into things that are trending in the media. You can tie it into programs that are TV programs that are very popular in your country at the time. But one of my favourite ways of getting stories is to, as I said, offer tips and advice. And I think that that's one that everyone, if you think about it, everyone can come up with some tips or advice that they can offer people. And when I say tips and advice, it's things like 5 ways to work, 5 do's and 5 don'ts in your industry, or things that you should be watching out for, things to avoid, things to make sure that you have. If you wanted to go to, let's just use handle your own PR as an example again, I might say the top 5 things that small business owners do wrong when they're approaching the media, or I might say 3 things to watch out for before you employ a PR agency, or my top 5 tips for how to come up with a newsworthy angle. All of those are positioning me as an expert, but I am not talking about my business as being the solution. I'm just offering people genuine information. And I think I often say to people, if you go out to a party or you're sitting at a barbecue, there will be questions that when you say to people what it is that you do, there are always questions that people ask you. And there starts to be a theme, people will always ask you that, 2 or 3 specific questions. Use those as the beginning of a media release and answer those questions in the media release. And that's a really good way to get started and to start thinking about how you can communicate your expertise out there in the media.
Great advice. And what are some of we sort of talked about myths, but what are some of the key objections? Why would, and particularly from a B2B, a lot of our community are from a B2B space rather than B2C space.
Yeah,
what are some of the objections you normally
So other than it being too expensive, which I think it can be resolved by doing it yourself. Another one that I hear a lot about is I don't have the time. I'm really, really busy in my business and I just don't have the time to set aside to do PR for myself. I guess my answer to that is that's exactly why I created the Accelerator program. So for 2 days every quarter, you get to immerse yourself into the messages that you want to get out there in the media, that you will also be able to use in social media and in email marketing or any other campaigns that you're doing. But the idea is that really you spend those 2 days getting your media release and getting your media campaigns ready to go. And then it should only take you about an hour to maybe a couple of hours max a month to send that media release out and then do some follow-up afterwards. If you weren't doing it through the platform and you wanted to do it yourself, I would still say to people, set aside a day a month, and that should be enough for you to write a media release, send it out to the journalists, and then do a little bit of follow-up. And really, for the difference that it can make to people's businesses, it's worthwhile spending that time. For example, I had a business coach at my last PR Accelerator, and she was very nervous. What she wants to do is get more people to coach, but she just wasn't sure. And what we discovered was that most of the people that she is coaching are people who are over 45 and they're male. And so we wrote a media release around the idea that, if you're an older person and you are looking down the barrel of redundancy, or you want to leave your job and you think that you won't be able to be employed again, consider taking all your expertise and becoming a coach and helping other small business owners get up to that level. Now, she wrote that media release. It got picked up by 2 media outlets, one of whom has then asked her to write regularly for the Bulletin. And she actually rang me at the end of the month and said, wow, I got 16 new business inquiries this month, and the only thing that I've done differently is getting that article published. So, really for the time that you spend to get your customers coming to you instead of actively having to constantly go out and find them, I think it's worth setting aside that time. And it's not a huge amount of time when you sort of extrapolate it out over the rest of the month.
Yeah, and do you see this very much as an and rather than an or? Because I know, people come to me and they'll want to do, 50 things. They want to launch a book. They'll want to do a podcast. They've got so many activities going on, and it's about prioritizing what should go when.
So for me, if you do PR, then you can use it on your website. You can use it for sales. You can use it for your social media, and it'll go off. It gives you credibility on your website. So I would say PR is, for me, one of the main things people should be doing in conjunction with social media, because obviously that's another inexpensive way to get that message out there. And then, then there's email marketing and speaking, which is always, a great thing to do. And again, if you raise your profile in the media and start showing people your expertise, you will get called by people asking you to speak at their events. So it kind of works on lots and lots of levels. It works for new business. It works for generating leads for you and for positioning you as an expert and then attracting new business to you.
Now, I got the sense that I won't get the answer that I was expecting on this question, but is there ever been a time where you've seen PR not work for a business?
Oh, absolutely. I don't want to say it's the perfect solution for everyone. Having said that, I think everyone can spin a story, but if you are a small restaurant or cafe, or you're a plumber or carpenter, and your audience is limited to a very localized area, then PR can work for you, but you don't get the opportunity to go to lots and lots of media outlets, because if you are only trying to go, say you've got a small business that you're trying to do in a local area, then obviously you can only service people in the local area, which only leaves you with the local newspaper, maybe some radio, if there's a local community radio station. So, look, I've helped everyone from picture framers to window washers, but you do need to be wanting to get some profile outside of your local area, really, to use PR effectively and to get the most value out of it. But having said that, I have worked with, as I said, picture framers who only worked in Melbourne but ended up getting lots of articles in the home living magazines and things like that. And that's worked really well for them. I've worked with experts, and the one that I just mentioned, the coaching woman, actually has bought a turnkey coaching business from the US. So it's highly commercial. Even the name of it is very commercial. But we managed to think about, if you think about the customers and you think about what they want to know about, you can twist and turn it and make it work for you at a not a hyper local level, but certainly at a state level.
Yeah, and what do you see? I know that you certainly give both a platform and also, an accelerator, but what do you see as common mistakes people make when they do it completely by themselves, whether they're not getting any assistance?
The biggest one, well, look, there's a few. The biggest one, as I mentioned earlier, is that they make their media release way too commercial, and the journalist takes one look at it and says, no, I'm not interested at all. Another one that people make if they do it themselves is that they feel that to send just a plain email or a Word document isn't fancy enough, and so they try doing it through MailChimp or through one of the other email sort of programs. What that actually does for a journalist is makes them realise, firstly, that you're sending it to lots and lots of people, and they always want to be made to feel like it's exclusive to them. So big mistake. If it's all designed up, they will be going, oh, well, this has obviously gone to a whole lot of people. And also they may mistake it for a newsletter, so they might not even open it. Another mistake people make is that they don't get to the point quickly enough. So I've even had somebody say to me, can I write pitch to Herald Sun as my subject line in the email? And of course, no journalist is going to open an email that doesn't clearly say what it is that the media release is about. So I suggest that people spend a bit of time thinking about the headline to their media release and then use that as the subject line in their email. And then last but not least, you've got to realise that journalists are getting between 50 and 100 emails a day with people pitching stories to them. And so they scan them in the same way that if we're reading a magazine or a newspaper, we really read the headline and the first couple of lines to see if we want to read any further. That's exactly what the journalists will do when they get your email. So there is no point being light and fluffy and moody or whatever you might be wanting to do in your first paragraph and not getting to the point straight away, because the journalist just won't read any further. So you need to make sure that the main gist of your media release is very clearly there in the first couple of sentences. And I think a lot of people don't realise that, and they do a whole lot of fluff and spend a whole lot of time talking about irrelevant things, in which case the journalist just can't get to the point fast enough and moves on to the next one. Oh, and the last one is that people send very high-res files to the journalists. And even though you might have beautiful photography, and I can't stress enough how important photography is for getting your media release published, if you've got a great photo, even in the business media, if you think about it, you never open a magazine page or a newspaper page in the business section that doesn't have a photo in it. And if you don't supply that photo, they've got to go off and find one. So if you want a really quick win, then send a great photo with your story. And often they will publish your story on the page just because it's got a great photo and everyone else has sent their media release without an image. So those are some of the really common mistakes. But if you are going to send an image, send a low-res image, because the other thing is that a lot of journalists have limited sizes in their mailboxes when they work for a big organisation. And so if their mailbox gets too full, what they will do is just sort by size of email and delete everything that's big. So you want your media release and photo really to be sitting at, ideally under a meg, but definitely under 2 meg.
Great. I know you've been in the industry for a long time, and you've really been offering this great handle your own solution since 2008. But how do you stay up to date with what's happening globally around PR? How do you continue to be an expert?
Well, I guess I'm talking with journalists all the time, because I do have a couple of freelancers that work for me that do PR, so I stay in touch that way. But actually, I am constantly talking with journalists, because I get them to come to the events. We talk about the pain points for journalists and what they hate and what they love. And from that, I guess I just stay really up to date with all of it. In terms of the journalist contacts that I have on my database, I have an automated system that goes out to the journalists every quarter that asks them if their details are correct and if they're still in the same role and if they still like to write on particular topics. And we also have somebody who their whole job is just contacting the media, checking details are okay, looking for new media outlets, etc., etc. And my customers tell me, sometimes people will say, I'm focusing on the entertainment industry and I really want these 5 media in there and I can't find them. And I'll say, fine, I'll get in contact with them and make sure that they go back up into the platform. So there's lots and lots of ways that I stay current. And also I'm doing my own PR. So I'm also sending media releases out myself. And so I know exactly what sort of articles work and what don't.
Excellent, brilliant. All right. Well, look, you've just given so much value. I can't wait to come on to the accelerator and also share more of the learnings that I have with the BLG community. But really want to thank you. And I think you've got a free webinar that you're going to offer the BLG audience as well.
I am. Thanks for that, Paul. I have a 40-minute webinar that I go through that tells people, it busts a few PR myths. It takes you through the 6-step process for how to do your own PR. And I also have some examples of business owners in there that have done it, including people like school teachers, and physiotherapists, people that have no marketing background at all, that we've managed to teach and have been very, very successful at getting coverage and what it can do for their business. So, but I do take you through the full 6 steps for how to do it and give you a whole lot of tips around each of those steps. And I think you're going to put the link up for your members, but I'm more than happy for people to have a listen to that. If anyone would like to come to one of my PR accelerators, and I hold them in Melbourne, Sydney and Adelaide at the moment, and we'll be starting in Queensland very soon, I'm more than happy for people to send me an email and I will do a 20-minute chat with them about whether they're PR ready and what they need to get together before they come to an accelerator. And to do that, people just need to email me on Jules, Jules, @handleyourownpr.com.au.
Excellent. Great. Well, we'll put all the links to that in the show notes. And
Right.
if you also go to buildlivegive.com/podcast and just search for Jules, you will find this great podcast and also the show notes. But Jules, thanks for coming on. I've learned a lot myself through this brief show, and I know that our listeners will definitely get value as well, because it's still I think a lot of agencies have done an injustice in the past, charged too much.
That's right.
And delivered very little, whereas I think you're correcting that. And I think, people can start adding it to the mix rather than always saying, look, I just don't think PR is for me. So I think it's a great opportunity. And thanks for coming on and sharing.
My absolute pleasure. I absolutely believe that PR is one of the most powerful ways that people can market themselves. And I don't want people to be intimidated by the process or be incredibly out of pocket. So I'm more than happy to help anyone who wants to try doing it, because I know that they'll be successful. There's always a way to spin a story.
Excellent. Well, thanks for listening to Jules Brooke from Handle Your Own PR. And if you'd like to get access to other great guests like Jules in our community, just go to blgboost.com and you can get access there. And also, I'd love to hear your questions. So what are the questions that you'd love to ask Jules? We can forward those to her, but just email me at paul@buildlivegive.com. And also, if you know another corporate escapee out there that would get real value in hearing Jules' fantastic advice, please share that with them, and also subscribe so you get many more experts coming to you soon. So once again, thanks, Jules, and have a great day.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you for listening to the Corporate Escapees podcast, brought to you by the team at Build, Live, Give. If you found this podcast helpful, please share it with other corporate escapees. If you would like to join a community of like-minded peers, please visit www.buildlivegive.com. Until next time, thanks for listening and be brave.